The Dauntless. So, Madam Nagasha, how may I help you? Why did you say there wasn't a primal Earthani before? Madam, I fully confess to there being a primal Earthani in my employ not only in this session, but the last session as well. How in any stretch of the imagination is it my fault that I was not believed when I reported the full and complete truth? He asks. You implied it to be nothing more than an absurd rumor, and you know it. I did so because I needed to buy my soldier more time to stabilize himself. There was no deception in his little presentation. He is an extremely busy man and frankly doesn't have time to be paraded around the galaxy like a prize pony. So I added so much doubt to things while ensuring that all relevant information is out and available for civilian use in order to attempt to balance the man's need for privacy and space over the requirements of a shifting galaxy. But she's a primal, an icon of her people, a goddess among mortals. He is a primal, yes. He is potentially an icon for the Earthani, and he very much does not enjoy the cults already forming and portraying him as a god among mortals. Do you have any idea how many male primals there are in the galaxy? 43 now, which is a bit of a shame as many of my nerd squad were hoping the number would add up to 42. Admiral Cistern answers and she just gives him an odd look. There's a popular satire series that proclaims the number 42 to be the answer to all things, so they celebrate the number. It's a joke. Ha ha. What is he going to do? She demands. Quell political strife on a planet reduced to barbarism, build infrastructure, and generally bring the light of civilization to a world that had lost its way 1,000 years ago. Oh, rescue an entire planet. Is that all? Family affairs as well, adopting royalty you overthrew, dismantling cults and reuniting with one's mother after being dead for 300 years isn't something most people casually know how to deal with. Clearly, how long is he going to be on Lachran? Years at least. There has been enormous systematic damage to the population, and the infrastructure of an entire world has to be built up from practically nothing, to say nothing of adduction and the building of defensive structures and far, far more. Rebuilding a world from the ground up is a slow, arduous task. And you're foisting it on a primal. Didn't you equate them to divinity? Who better or more capable? He asks, throwing her earlier words back at her. Do you have any idea just how serious this is? Extremely. However, despite my putting many researchers and legal professionals on the case, there is in fact no protocol or precedent for a new strain of primal to emerge to the galaxy at large. Mostly because the last time it happened was so long ago that the only remaining records of that time are in the form of religious scripture and legend. So what are you trying to do exactly? I'm trying to set a precedent where the autonomy, privacy, and personhood of the primal in question are all respected while the galaxy also receives the information it needs so that the peoples affected by the emergence are able to adapt to their changing circumstances. Admiral Cistern answers, and the Nagasha stares at him for a moment. I see. There's no way I can argue against that without becoming the villain of this piece, can I? She asks ruefully. The unfortunate side effect of dealing with reasonable people, opposing them is much more difficult, Admiral Cistern says. Is there anything else? No, there isn't, she says. Very good. Now the question is, do you mind if I use the recording of this to show everyone in the hallway? If you have all the same questions as them, it would save me a great deal of time. He asks, indicated a small spot on the wall where a tiny camera and microphone are hidden. No, you cannot, she says, and he nods. Very well. Have a good day, ma'am, Admiral Cistern says, and she slithers out of the room while eyeing up the natural crease in the wall paneling where the camera is hidden, and also scanning the rest as she tries to spot more. Her eyes don't pause on any of the 5 other cameras. After she leaves, he sticks his head out the door. Yes, if the next person to come in will consent to my recording and playing back the entire question and answer session, I would be most appreciative. Very well, I would like an explanation on why he was speaking of flawless gemstones, vast oceans, and all-devouring flames. An Earthani woman with 6 antennae states as she all but marches up to him. Of course, please come in. So, are things going the way you hoped, sir? Private Stream asks after returning with little Charles. There's also Ambassador Tal following the boy and the dog in. There's doubt, confusion, and in general, no one massive unified reaction, which means everything can be handled piecemeal. By the time a consensus is reached by the common people and turns into political will, there will be plenty of warning to whatever their decision is, Admiral Cistern says with a smile. The records of my little interviews with numerous ambassadors, are they ready for release? They're being compiled together into one big file now, sir, Private Stream says. Also, little Charles, Goblin. Ambassador Tal corrects, and the traitorous little terrier looks back at her in response to what he mistakenly thinks his name is. See, he knows his name. Thank goodness that my soldiers' loyalties are not so easily swayed. Admiral Cistern notes with a bit of a sigh. Private Stream, is there anything of particular interest? Well, there are several ships that have declared their flight plan to be right towards Lacron. More interestingly has been a single message from the royal ship of Queen Haliciana, the supposedly first primal. Supposedly? How is there anything supposed about it? She was alive and around when contact with the Nagasha was first made, Nikta asks, and Admiral Cistern rubs his chin. Some of my own troops and intelligence officers have some doubts. There were 3 primal Nagasha at the time they became a galactic community. Queen Haliciana is the most prominent and active one, but she's one of 3 potential first primals, Admiral Cistern says before shrugging. Not that it really matters. The other 2 are Salamastra. The historian, who is a fairly well-rooted down and mild-mannered scholar, and Marcianas the Wise, is a spiritualist that lives as a hermit, which means that whether Haliciana is the first or not, she's the only one politically active and the only one we have to care much about. There's another thing to consider, sir, Private Stream says. Let me guess, recruitment levels, particularly of Wimparas, have spiked so extremely high that the charts seem to have an overhang on them? Admiral Cistern asks. Yes, sir. Entirely predictable. How many of our officer potentials are ready for drill instructor training? In a month we can triple their effective numbers, but we're already straining ourselves near the breaking point. Our growth predictions were far too low. Frankly put, sir, at this pace victory may very well kill us. We can't take a break for winning, and we need some time to put up our feet and adjust our belts before we get cut off at the waist. Private Stream reports as a small folder is teleported into his hands and the information is pumped into his ears. Damn, Admiral Cistern says before smiling. If all my problems are this easy to solve, then I'm going to get sloppy. Sir, there's always talent for hire, yes. We need more instructors now and experienced crewmen to serve as examples, but we can set the dates on when the training begins. We can also hire numerous contractors to serve as mentors and teachers. There are entire cultures based around martial excellence and mercenary exploits. It will be a triviality to hire them out, especially as our reputation has only made the stocks and assets we own all the more appealing, so our wealth increases as well. Well, sir, thank goodness we have someone like you on logistics. It's far from my field of expertise, Private Stream notes. So everything is in hand, Ambassador Tal asks, with a smirk. Not how I'd put it. Overconfidence leads to all sorts of mistakes, ones I hope to avoid. This is an issue, but so long as we don't spike in needs time after time after time. Admiral Cistern notes. Still, it will be difficult to get my hands on all the materials for uniforms and such, although it could be... Oh, there's that look again, Ambassador Tal teases. An outreach program. Low skill needed to assist in production. Private stream. Make sure that your handler is in communication with my legal department. I'm going to need forms to start up several new projects. Admiral Cistern remarks, and Private Stream offers a nod and salute. Already on it, sir. Is there anything that shakes you? My ex-wife, perhaps? Her shift in personality was more akin to, I apologize, that's in bad taste. Admiral Cistern notes pulling his hat down a touch, even as little Charles jumps up partially to brace against the side of his knee. I agree with Goblin. Say it, Nikta says with a cackle. More akin to a movie monster peeling off its false face before attacking, Admiral Cistern says. Should I leave, sir? Private Stream remarks. You can wait outside. Perhaps run a lint brush over your uniform? Admiral Cistern advises. It'd catch twice as much on yours, sir, Private Stream says as he snaps off a salute and marches out of the room. Admiral Cistern then lowers himself into his chair, and while little Charles is first into his lap, Ambassador Tal lifts the dog up and holds the pet in her own lap as she sits in his. Overwhelmed, big man? Just frustrated and a little exhausted. Every move we make is logical from one step to the other. We're trying to portray that we're here to help and heal, but in doing so, so much more just pours into our laps and, oh, it's not all bad, is it? No, it's just a lot to juggle. Hey, you're undaunted, aren't you? Nothing can stop you. Everything just makes you stronger. What was that speech translated into? A great fire that consumes all? A mountain that cannot be moved? A flawless gemstone made only stronger for the pressure upon it? Nikta asks, and Admiral Cistern chuckles. It's true, but it's tiring, he says, pulling her closer. This is going to get even more hectic before it calms. And that's if nothing else happens, which I honestly have a great deal of doubt about. To make matters worse, Dr. mandated vacation. Yes, it's ironic. I'm outranked in the very organization I found and hold the highest office in. What's the saying? The highest ranks in any military are chefs in the mess hall, medics in the infirmary, and ordnance technicians at a dead sprint, she asks, and he lets out a low but honest laugh. Something like that, he says before holding her a little closer. The wife in the home is also fairly high up there. Oh? Do tell, she says, leaning up even as little Charles leaps off her lap in order to get out from between them. Good news, sir, Private Stream says, opening the door again. Oh, I'm sorry, I'll deliver it later. No, Private, you've thoroughly assassinated the moment. Deliver your report, Admiral Cistern says, even as he adjusts Ambassador Tal in his lap. Sorry again. Basically, sir, several paramilitary organizations are reaching out to the undaunted, and with just a bit of work they could make excellent officers for both teaching and to help get our glut of new recruits to get some grit in their guts and work the shine off their boots so we can really get moving if and when they're done with us. Well, that's about 20 minutes of work skipped for me. Thank you, Private, Admiral Cistern states. Until I return to my office proper tonight, then simply compile everything into a report. Only emergencies require immediate response. Sir, yes, sir, Private Stream says before leaving the room. Now, where were we? Ambassador Tal asks, leaning back to stretch up and kiss Admiral Cistern on the jaw. I believe we were... He begins before little Charles jumps up between them both with a happy yip. The military man sighs fondly at the interruption and places a calming hand on the dog. Overdue for a little more privacy. The amused laughter of the goby in his lap is plenty relaxing regardless.